Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 39 of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records, and joining me, as usual, my very good friend and the leader of the International Pop Overthrow Festival all over the world, my good friend David Bash. How are you this evening, David?
Well, it's noon actually in Southern California,
I'm just so
but
used to saying this evening. It's the evening for our guest.
yes,
We'll just say
and
that.
but appropriately enough, I'm about as tired as I would be late in the evening. I've been working on IPO Liverpool, and so that's forced me to be awake at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning my time to deal effectively with so many bands from all over Europe. So yeah,
And that's
I'm
still
pretty
at the
sleepy.
Cavern Club, and it's going to be at the Cavern Pub, both in Liverpool, correct?
Yeah, and there were a few changes this year, both good and not so great. We got our eighth day back. That's the good news. We'd been doing 8 days a week, as they say, for many years, and we lost a date, but got it back. So the new dates are May 15th through 22nd.
Very good.
Um, and the bad news, unfortunately, is that we don't have use of the front stage this year. The Cavern has decided to just do Beatles stuff on the front stage all day, every day. So, and that's their trade. That's their trade. That's what brings in the revenue. And I get it. It's a shame, but hey, we had the front stage for 17 years.
Right, right.
So if we
Well, you
only
got
have
the
the
nice big
backstage in the
backstage,
pub, not so bad, right?
and you got
And
bands coming in from all over the world, which
we're
is
going to have
wonderful.
110 bands from all over the world, and it's not, it's going to be great. And I've got Phoenix coming up and Chicago, both in April. I've put together dates for LA in July. We've got Vancouver set up at the end of August into early September, and we've got Arlington, Texas again in mid-September, and I'm sure we'll have some of the East Coast cities. Speaking of East Coast cities, our guest is going to be playing some of those, as well as West Coast cities, and both Mark and I are thrilled about that because we'll both get to see our guest live for the first time. And what can I say? I mean, this is truly an honor. It's not every day that we have somebody on Material Issues who's had a #1 record on the Billboard charts. And not just that, but a couple of other top fives, some top 20s, a lot of huge hits in England. And, what some people don't know, and it's unfortunate that they don't, is that our guest has been recording albums throughout the years. He had one self-titled a couple of years ago and has a new one called Driven coming out. And that's going to be somewhat of a focal point of a tour that he's doing in 10 different cities across the United States, including Philadelphia, which is near where Mark lives, and Los Angeles, which is near where I live. So it's going to be a thrill for us to see him. And like I said, this is truly an honor to have this man who's done just so many great records over the years and still going strong. Would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. GIlbert O'Sullivan?
And there he is.
Hello, David. Hello, Mark.
How
Good
are
to
you?
see you, Gilbert. How are you feeling? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you.
You look good. You sound good. You're still going on. You got a new album coming out. You're coming back over to the United States for a great city winery based tour. Things are going pretty well for you now as the pandemic has kind of
Yeah,
opened things up a little bit.
it's good for everybody, isn't it? That it allows for those bands that depend on touring for their income and stuff. It's really great news for them and stuff. So your heart goes out to all the people who throughout this lockdown have suffered so badly. But I think this year, things look like they're getting back to a near normality.
I think so. This, on a personal level, is very good for me because 2 years ago, when the tour was originally set, I was going to be out of pocket I wanted to see you, but when you were in Los Angeles, I was going to be in Chicago doing my music festival. This year, the tour's in LA is scheduled for March, and I'll be home. So
you're going to come and see us. You're going to come and see us. You're going to come and see us.
I'll be there.
Okay, cool.
They would be there, and I'll be at the Philly show. I can't wait for show number 2 of your tour at the City Winery in Philadelphia. That's right over the bridge.
It's taken us so long to get back into America because from about 1990, my only American tour proper was in 1973 after the success of Alone Again, Clear and Get Down, all million sellers. But a terrible mistake was made in the Moody Blues, which should have happened as a start of. They put me out into arenas on my own and stuff, which was a big mistake. And so the tour got cancelled halfway through. That's why we never made the West Coast. And so we now move on to 1990 when I started touring regularly with my band, have a great band. And throughout that time, from 1990 almost up to the present, we have tried to get back to America. But as you guys know, the cost of bringing a band to the States is pretty expensive. Now, 3 years ago, my guitar player and I, Bill Shanley, my guitar player, we decided that we would do an up close and personal concert over 2 hours, just the two of us, me on piano, him on guitar. And it's been very successful. And that opened the door to you guys. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the offers came in. And that tour in 2020 should have followed on from the two we did in New York, just outside. So it's such a nice feeling to be able to perform for you guys in America.
Now, is that something you would? Now, obviously, I mean this 10-day tour. It's a short little tour. You're playing wonderful venues, and I'm sure the ticket sales are going to sell right out really quick. Is that something you would come back and start doing more often, as far as maybe personal shows of you and your guitar player playing a lot of venues?
It's a big start, Mark. It's a big start for us to be doing these venues. We hope to build on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the touring for me is not the most important thing. Touring is next to the writing. The songs are the key to be able to tour. Without the songs, there'd be no tour. There'd be no art. I love songwriting and stuff, and I'm always allowed, when I've written the songs, I'm coming up with songs. No, writer's block for me. I'm always capable of coming up with songs, and with those songs, I want to be able to record. And that's why it's a joy to be able to, every 2 years or so, to bring out a new album and then go on the road for that period of time to promote it. So most of this year will be taken up with Japan, you guys, Europe, and the UK, big time in the UK. Wow. And then, and by the end of the year, we'll look forward to, coming back to you at a future date and building up on that. So it's an exciting prospect to be touring America. It really is.
One of the things I want people to know, and I'm sure you do too, is that you've been you're not anywhere near an oldies act. You're not going to go out and just tour the hits. You're going to be playing some deep cuts and some recent stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean,
people need to know about that.
Yeah, and I'm not against people to do that, David. I mean, because for some people, that's how they make their living.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not for me. The combination of what I do, which I think is the most important thing, is, of course, over 2 hours, we include the well-known songs, but we also include album tracks that people have written to me about, saying their favorite. And then likewise, a sample of new material. So the balance is there, all written by the same person. But it's a joy to be able to do that. And of course, by doing it with just the two of us, being up close and personal, people get to hear the words perhaps clearer than they might have done if we had the band. So
which is important. Yeah, which besides the music, lyrically, it's poetry, and hearing what you're talking about, what you're saying on a much more personal level is what I'm looking forward to, especially. And as you said, deep cuts and tracks that people have written to you about. We've gotten so many comments when we started posting about this show coming up tonight. People saying, ask him about this track, ask him about this one. How did it? And it got to be out of control to the point where we'd be on here for 4 hours if we had to ask every question that came in, because people love a wide variety of your material from all your albums, which is
that's nice to hear. That's nice. I mean, I've always had good correspondence from fans in America, picking up on certain tracks they've liked on previous albums that have not been released in the States, but they've got a hold of them. And so there's something really nice about that. And of course, I reply as best I can to almost anybody who writes to me.
Well, I think if you're a Gilbert O'Sullivan fan, you're a Gilbert O'Sullivan fan. I mean, that's just, you're going to
I
find
wanted to
everything.
bring this one out, although it doesn't span your entire career. It's one that maybe some people don't know about. It's a box set that Rhino Handmade did.
Yeah, that was a
back in
limited.
the early 2000s.
Yeah, that was a limited edition, David. I think
it was very limited, but it's still findable. People
Yeah.
know how to find stuff if they really want to. I would highly recommend it because it spans your career from the late 60s tracks to around 2003. Has a lot of album cuts on it, some unreleased, the demo of Nothing Rhymed, which is very, very cool. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there because we have a lot of fervent music lovers.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you for this.
I wanted to pop this graphic up real quick, Gilbert. It shows everybody where you're going to be here in the tour, starting off in Houston, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Chicago, Nashville, Atlanta, to LA, and then back in Washington, D.C. So you're hitting every big city across the U.S. In a short period of time. So we popped up the banner link. So anybody that needs information, GIlbertO'Sullivan.co.uk. You've got everything involved there, from everything you've done to the tour information, so they can check you out right there and make sure they come on out and see Gilbert O'Sullivan live, man. Shoo.
So tell us, when did you decide you wanted to be a songwriter and musician? Was it when you were still in Ireland, or not until you got to Swindon?
Well, I think the biggest influence, people talk about what's the biggest influence on you, usually a band or a singer, or male or females. In my case, the radio, I have to say radio. The radio was always the biggest influence, because without the radio, I wouldn't have heard the bands, the musicians I eventually got to love. And so therefore, as a 6 or 7 year old, we all went through that thing of having a little portable radio in the bed at night, under the blanket, so your parents couldn't hear you. And that's when you get to hear the start of popular music and songs that resonated with me. We used to get a station in Europe called Radio Luxembourg, and we would hear the American hits, people like Carole King and Might As Well Rain Until September, Buddy Holly stuff. And so that was it. But then what happened was that in 1962, with the arrival of the Beatles, up to that point, we loved Cliff Richard and the Shadows, very popular in England. But you never felt you could be in a band like them. You never felt that you could do what Cliff Richard did, be a singer. Suddenly, when the Beatles came on the scene, they wrote great songs. We loved them. And they had no musical theory. They couldn't read music and stuff. They were able to do it through a love of music. And that, in effect, is what led to all contemporary songwriters, I think, being able to do it. Not because they can read or write, simply because of the love of music that's there. And that then, with me, obviously everybody in England wanted to be in a band. Just like when the Beatles turned up in America on the Ed Sullivan Show, everybody after that show wanted to grow their hair and play guitars and do that. So it's so that's so my first band, I was a drummer, and my second band was a kind of youth club band, and that led to a more serious band. But I was starting to write songs. We had a piano in the house, which my mother allowed me to put in the garden shed. So after college, I would go out there for a couple of hours at night and on the weekend, and started to come up with little tunes. So I was eventually, just doing it out of just genuine interest. I had no thoughts at that point on being a singer on my own. But the band that we were in that could have been professional, we were very good, contained myself and Rick Davis, who was on keyboards.
Yep.
And the guitar
player.
Yeah. And so those two guys, we could have turned professional, which would have meant that we'd have been a professional band and gone on to hopefully have had some success. But the bass player and the guitar player were on, they had jobs and they didn't want to give up to risk losing their jobs, apprenticeships or whatever. So that meant that Rick and I had to decide what to do. And it was at that point that Rick needed to be in a band. So he went off to form a band called The Lonely Ones, a band called The Joint, which ended up being called Supertramp. And then with me, I just ended up becoming me. I came to London, created this character, and set out to become a singer who wrote his songs and looking for success.
Now, when you said
your idea
there, I was going to say,
Mark, I'm sorry.
You said a key thing there when you said created this character.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was
are you talking about the image that you kind of you kind of went down that road and said this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm 19, 20 years old. I create this character. I love Charlie Chaplin. I used to hire a bobtail jacket from the theatrical costumers I would hire it for the weekend. They used to say to me, what's the production you're hiring it for? And I said, it's not for anybody. It's just for me to look in the mirror on Saturday and Sunday to bring back to you. So I created it because the character thing was the catalyst for me were the Beatles. Again, they didn't have to have Beatle haircuts. They didn't have to have collarless jackets. They looked different. So for me, wanting to be different was the key when I wanted to be a singer. So the character was based on Charlie Chaplin, a sort of just William character. And nobody liked it. The record company, CBS, hated it and said, please grow your hair, put on a pair of jeans, look like James Taylor, and you'll be much more successful.
And nobody liked it.
And they were right. And then the next record company was saying, please drop this image. But I was determined because I knew it was nothing to do with songwriting. It wasn't Tiny Tim who didn't do anything else other than be a novelty act. There was serious stuff behind this image. And I liked the contradiction of how I looked as opposed to somebody who wrote the songs, which were quite serious at times. But anyway, Gordon Mills, my manager then, who took me on in 1969, he didn't like the image. But he said, look, I like your songs and I think you'll be successful. I'm prepared to go along with it. But you know something, Dave, Mark, if he hadn't liked it, I would have walked. Because I was that determined because the strength in me was not about being pugnacious, about being arrogant. It was about I had the songs. I knew I've got these good songs. I just want to present it in the way that I want to do it. And nobody's going to tell me any different. But they were absolutely right to say that you lose fans, you won't sell as many records. Because you have to argue that if you were walking around a college campus in 1970, 72 with a GIlbert O'Sullivan album, you'd be a little embarrassed.
If you were a boy, maybe, but meaning the people carrying the albums. But Gordon turned out to be right about a few things. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Namely, telling is it MAM or MAM? I've always
MAM.
Telling MAM that no, Out of the Question shouldn't be the first single. Alone Again naturally should.
There you go.
Certainly right about that.
But that's an interesting point because everybody seems to think that when Alone Again was written, I must have felt that this was going to be. But no, I was happy with the song as I was happy with other songs. Happy when we were in the studio to record it with Out of the Question. Happy when they said Out of the Question should be the single. Not disappointed when they didn't pick Alone Again. But as you say, Gordon chose it. And it was a big success in England, but not like the success it achieved with you guys.
Right.
Because it became your song. I mean, Alone Again is America's song. Right. It's not England's song. It was a success in England. I mean, some of the reviews, I've kept the reviews of Alone Again in England. One of them I love is another little ditty from Little Gilbert. If it gets the airplay, it could be a hit. So there you go.
Well, now, so it had some popularity in England, but not to the level of the U.S.
Yeah, it was a top record still.
Yeah, but did you how did it happen for you as far as reaching number one in the U.S.? Was it something that you could watch happening and all of a sudden, yes, we made number one, or did you get that classic phone call? Can you believe this? You're number one.
Well, I think the first thing to establish is that the luck and the timing and the judgment that goes into a record being a success. A certain radio station in the States picked up on it. You know the story. This has happened. You've probably heard it. Other people have told you. And it spread from them playing it, loving it. And it spread. I mean, it's not Alone Again isn't. It took a long time to break in England. It took about 4 or 5 weeks for it to happen. Whereas maybe Out of the Question would have happened quicker. But eventually, the more people heard it, the more people liked it. And so it was a slow grower. And that station in the States that picked it up led to all the other stations. You know the story because you must have heard it further on. And being number one was, it was incredible. The record company were just, and what can I say? I never envisaged having a number one record in America. I never envisaged being successful outside of England where I lived. For me, success was about writing a song, having a top 10 record, hearing it on the radio, and the postman whistling to it when he delivers your mail.
But there had to be some real celebration the evening of knowing I've got a number one in America. I always like to know what that feels like for somebody with their first number one. That it's just got to be that's a little bit mind blowing.
Yeah, very, very special. And that's why, the love of the song in America is just, it's defined by the fact that the covers I get, right from people like Sarah Vaughan, Esther Phillips, right through to Michael Bublé and Diane, what's her name? Diane, and Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond did a lovely version of it and sent me a letter.
Oh yeah,
those kind of things. The relationship I have with America on the song is very special. I'll always be grateful for the success.
I think one of the things that made it so special to us is we felt it was autobiographical. It wasn't until much later that I found out that it wasn't about your mom and your dad and other things, other parts of the subject matter, that it was really just written about somebody theoretical, right?
But I think the key there is the fact that, in my opinion, you don't have to experience something to be able to write about it in a sincere way. An understanding of the subject. I think what makes you a good lyricist is being able to get into a subject without having the experience of it, and having kind of your understanding of what somebody might be going through with that. That I think is important to have, and I think that's what happened with The Lonely, because people are surprised that it's not based on personal experience.
No, you're absolutely right about that. I guess my point being, I think that's what helped make it such a huge hit. Let's look at, for example, Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks. Everyone thought it was about him. They thought it was something he was going through personally. I think that endeared people to the song more, and that's one of the reasons it was such a huge hit.
I'll give you an example.
He didn't even write it, but
let me give you an example of the opposite of that. You know the song "How Long" by Ace? Do you remember?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I tell this when I'm on tour. The singer of Ace, what's his name?
Paul Carrick.
Yeah.
Paul Carrick. He gave an interview on a radio station, which I listened to at the time some years back, and on it they talked about How Long, and they said, this is a wonderful song, great success, and it's obviously about a relationship that's gone wrong, and she's been carrying it on behind his back, right? Then Paul made the infamous mistake, in my opinion, by saying it was written about the bass player leaving the band. So, so there's a moral there. Please be very careful when you tell people what your song is about.
Oh yeah,
you might get it wrong.
No, it's absolutely true. But David and I coming from pretty much the same age group or whatnot, that's just one of those songs that is very iconic to my youth. And anywhere I'm at, when I hear it, it takes me right back to a specific place and time. It just is one of those songs. And well done. It's a pleasure for me to look at you live and say, well done, Gilbert. My God, that was good. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
And when I meet people after the concerts and stuff, and they tell me that the effect it's had on them, that particular song, it gets to me too. I mean, I think I might have been aware of that before I wrote it. I might have been a bit frightened about doing it. But as a young songwriter, I was only 22 when I wrote it. I was just writing, I had two middle sections. I didn't know which one I was going to use. I didn't yet have the title, but I had the story. I got into it. I get into those things. I mean, to this day, normally with a lyric for a new song, there's no words. It's just the music. But I start with a blank piece of paper, and then within a couple of days, I'm writing 6 verses instead of 3 that I need.
Right.
I get so into the subject, and that's what's fascinating about songwriting.
And you're very much a work-a-day. I mean, I've seen interviews where you talk about your process, and you get up and you get into your studio, you clock in, you work at your craft all day, and you clock out.
It's the brill building. It's a brill building.
No question. And we've talked to a lot of artists on here and just their process and the way, and everybody's different, obviously, but there are those just like you. They get up in the morning, and this is what I do. This is how I go through it, and that fascinates me myself, especially for as many albums as you've done and as much material as you've done. It's, I mean, like today, for example, anything decent come out of today?
I'm at my daughter's flat here in London, so I'm not in Jersey, where we live in Jersey and stuff. But another point is Mark and David, when I do that discipline thing of 9 to 5 and stuff, I may get nothing at the end of the day, right? But I haven't wasted the time because it's improved my piano playing. Right. So it's not a waste of time. So it doesn't matter if you don't come up with an idea, but you keep at it until you get that idea. And when that idea comes to you melodically, that's a gem. And then you'll do the trunk thing like Irving Berlin. You'll trunk it, and then because good melodies will survive any length of time. But if you finish a lyric and you don't use it, it's arguable that what you're singing about. And I tend to do this, pick up on things that are going on around us. You could become a bit dated. So I tend never to leave the words, never write the words until I know I'm going to make the record.
Right. Okay. And you never know, you might have something in your unconscious mind that from a day's work that you don't realize, and then the next day it emerges. That can happen also. I wanted to ask you this because you were, as you said earlier, you were steadfastly determined to keep that image going, and of the Charlie Chaplin look. And on the original cover of himself, you certainly have that. Then Alone Again becomes a huge hit, especially in the States, and suddenly the album gets re-released. Now the song is on it, which it wasn't originally, and you've got a picture of yourself in a Letterman sweater. How did you feel about all of that?
Well, again, it's the image thing, David. The image thing is fun. It's the serious thing is the writing. Serious thing is the songwriting. The fun is having the image thing. So when success came in 70, 71, I'd had the image for 3 years already. So it was time to move on. I saw a Buster Keaton silent movie, and he was wearing the collie sweater. I thought, I'm up for that. So that was the next image, which appealed to you. The cap and boots wouldn't have appealed to you. They would have liked the pudding basin haircut, and they like the pudding basin haircut now because everybody has short hair. But in '67, my God, long hair was here to stay. I had this pudding basin haircut like a freak.
And what's your feeling about lyrically from let's say late '60s, early '70s, some of the lyrics that you were writing, as opposed to lyrics that you're hearing today from the radio and things? And you talk about the radio being your influence, so to speak. Lyrically, from Alone Again and Claire and Get Down and things like that, as opposed to what you're hearing today.
Yeah, but something before that. I mean, the second record went out. The first record went out with CBS, and I did 2 songs with them, which were okay. I wasn't that happy, so I moved on. The next record company, I had this song called "I Wish I Could Cry." That was written about the death of Bobby Kennedy. I mean, because we were the generation that were really upset by him because we felt that he would be the next president. So as a young teenager in the UK, we all felt such sadness. So that song was written about him, but it was they destroyed the recording of it. The great thing about Gordon Mills, who was also my producer, was that when we recorded Nothing Rhymed, which was the first success in England, the recording session for that was magic, because it was the first time I was in a studio playing the piano, singing live with 3 musicians, a bass player, a guitar player, and the drummer. And I came out of that 3-hour session having recorded Nothing Rhymed. And I had no idea if it would be a success, but I was in 7th heaven, because it was such a joy to make to be in the studio and singing and enjoying it for the first time and stuff. So that magical moment and stuff like that.
What did you think? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But what did you think about Burton Cummings' version of it?
Yeah, he was in the band, the Canadian band. Yeah, he saw me on Top of the Pops when I did the second song, or he might have seen me doing Top of the Pops with Nothing Rhymed, and that's why he wanted to record it and stuff. His version was really good. It's again,
I like it too.
I said earlier, it's a compliment to you as a songwriter, whoever does your song. It doesn't have to be a celebrity or a popular artist. If the man next door does it, it's a compliment. You don't have to like it. It's the fact that they're prepared to do it, I think, is the key.
We just had a comment.
I wanted to ask you about, oh, wow, look at this.
Yeah, somebody just tracked down Rhino Handmade and just bought it.
Wow, so there you go.
See you, Barry.
Enjoy it, Barry. I know you will. I wanted to ask you about Underneath the Blanket Go, because I know that wasn't about you listening to the radio underneath the blanket. It's a very, very interesting song. It has these really unusual tempo changes, and I had never heard anything like it. And didn't Lindsay DePaul do a version of that?
No, she was with the record. She had her success with Sugar Me, a song called Sugar Me. No, she didn't. Yeah. It's interesting story with Underneath the Blanket. It was the second single after Nothing Rhymes. So Nothing Rhymes is a top 10 record in England. First success, everybody's delighted. And then the next song Now, normally, if you have a hit with a ballad, the record company tends to say, let's have another ballad type song to follow up and stuff. In my case, Gordon Mills said to me, what have you got? And I said, well, I've got this kind of Ramsey Lewis type song, nothing like, nothing rhyme. Let's just do it. Stuff. And I got Rick Davis from Supertramp. Rick, I got into, they hadn't had any success at this point, but I wanted to kind of help out stuff. So I got Rick to play on the record. But it was only a very minor hit. Everybody thought I would be a one-hit wonder. But the interesting thing is I did an interview with a well-known English journalist who said, how did you write that song about masturbation?
Wow. Which is a nice segue into Claire, because, not that that's about masturbation or anything.
It's not about masturbation. It wasn't about that.
No, of course not. But, when I first heard Claire, as I'm sure a lot of people felt, at first you think it's about, a lover of yours. And then as the song goes on, you start to realize, wait a second, no, it's about a child that he's babysitting, which it turns out it wasn't you. Well, you were babysitting her for a bit. It was Gordon Mills's daughter. But was there any controversy attached to that song at all? Given that it seemed like it was about one thing, and then near the end it was about another.
Not then, David, but there is now.
Yeah.
Then it was. I wrote it as a thank you to Gordon and his wife. Gordon for my manager and my career. And I used to babysit because I only lived down the road from them and stuff. And they'd ring up and say, Ray, we're off to some big do tonight. Can you come up and babysit? So, yeah, no problem. I live around the corner in the house that Gordon had let me live in to start with. And so I would babysit. And Claire was the one that would get up in the middle of the night and stuff. And she got very attached to me in a kind of nice way. Uncle Ray, I'd go up to the house and she'd be there. So, kids do get attached to you. So the song was written as a thank you to Gordon and his wife Jo, because she used to cook meals for me too. And Gordon plays the harmonica in the solo. He was quite a well-known harmonica player in his day. And Claire is the one that laughs at the end of it. So the song was a big number one in England. People love the song. But the question mark, we live in a different world today. It's arguable that I wouldn't be able to write that song today. And I remember a well-known personality in England. I read it in a newspaper. There's a very popular program on English radio for children, 9 o'clock every Saturday morning. They play Nellie the Elephant songs for kids and stuff. And this person, this well-known personality, asked the person who compared the show or did the show, I've got this young little daughter of ours who would love you to play Claire for her. And this guy said, oh, no. Can't do that. So there you are.
Yeah. It's a different time. I mean, as you said, today it's a little sad about that. And even some lyrics with like "Alone Again" naturally when the word "gay" is in there. Back then, there's not even a thought that there's a connotation to that. But today, sadly, people.
But we perform it, Mark, and it goes. It's a really nice song, Claire. It has a nice middle section and stuff. And I'm proud of the song. I'm proud of
wonderful song.
Absolutely. I mean, we get covers of it from European record companies, European artists and stuff. And we're in contact with her. We meet up with her regularly. We did a big concert in Hyde Park where we were part of the various acts in front of 25,000 people. And she came along that night. And my daughters were there with her watching the show when I performed. And when I sang Claire, she almost had tears in her eyes when she heard it. So it shows you how much it meant to her and still means to her. So, and
one thing I didn't know was I learned recently, but on "Alone Again" naturally, Big Jim Sullivan's playing the guitar.
Yeah, the wonderful guitar player.
And fantastic guitar player. And for whatever reason, I did not know that, and been playing that a lot the last week or so, just thinking, boy, that's really well done. And no wonder.
Did you know he made an album called O'Sullivan Plays Sullivan?
Yes. Yeah, I had to look that up too and find that.
Wonderful guitar player.
Wonderful guitar player. It's just amazing. One thing I wanted to ask you quick before I forget about it. You talk about being honored when anybody is covering your songs, which is wonderful. Are you familiar with the? And my daughter wanted me to ask you this. She's 27 and a fan, but the Uncle Devil Show, their song "Gilbert O'Sullivan."
No, the Uncle.
Wow.
Yeah, the Uncle Devil Show is Justin Curry of Delamitri.
Oh yeah, I knew that he was a fan.
And the McDermott brothers that were in Simple Minds and a couple things, but they have a song on their only album, which Justin Curry still to this day says he had nothing to do with it. It's all part of the act, the image. It's mystery out. They have a song called Gilbert O'Sullivan, and it's all about the fact that because he sang Nothing Rhymes, he'll always be a friend of mine. And I didn't know if you had even heard of that before.
I did. I didn't realize. In my memory of it is that it wasn't about. I was talked about in this song, but
yeah.
I didn't realize.
It's not so much about you. It's like if I had a choice of listening to Jerry Mulligan or Lonnie Donegan, screw them. I choose Gilbert O'Sullivan. But I just love. I mean, my daughters at the time. This was when they were 12, 14 years old, and I mean to have them in the back of my car going, Gilbert O'Sullivan is everything you could need. You know, it's just really neat. Then you play Gilbert O'Sullivan tracks for them, and they fall in love with your tunes. That just comes full circle. You know,
that's great.
That's
I wanted to talk a little bit about what's my favorite of your albums. I'm a writer, not a fighter, because A, it rocks, and B, it's very funky. I think like Ooh Baby, for example, Stevie Wonder, I can hear in my head Stevie Wonder doing an arrangement of that song. He certainly could have. Is that something that you decided it's now time for a change? Let's start rocking more?
I don't know. There's no analysis or I don't think about it. It's just whatever I come up with, Dave. You know, an album is ready to be made. What have you got kind of routine stuff. So I worked out the kind of songs. And Right Not a Fighter, Get Down was the big song for that album. And stuff is a #1 record here and stuff. But a lot of it was recorded at Gordon's studio. And, you know, I was just happy with it. The mix of songs, I like to think there's a good mix there. Always.
There is.
If it's the same writer every time, you know, of the amount of albums I made, I don't collaborate with anybody. It's just co-write with anyone. It's just me who writes all the songs. And so it's good that I'm able to do slow, fast, medium, up, humorous. And because that's very important. If every song I wrote was a ballad, you know, it's arguable that people would get bored quickly. So
how did it, speaking of that album, how did it come about that you were doing the duet with Elton John on Get Down and that BBC special?
Well, because that was my special, and the director of the TV show knew Elton and said that, you know, I think he'd like to make an appearance. Elton is, you know, is a fan of people who are successful,
Yeah.
And so, you know, so he you know, he agreed to do it. I went to his home to meet him. So I was so impressed with his house. With all
I can imagine. Had a huge record collection there, huh?
When I went back to my house, which was completely empty, I thought, my God, you know, I was able to do that, and I need to do something about my house and stuff. But really nice person, and he appeared on the show, and yeah, what can I say? So it was really good.
And he walked in. Obviously, I mean, how many rehearsals or takes did it take before you actually filmed that version?
We didn't do that for the actual show. Elton just did his song. For the TV special, and I did whatever songs I was doing. That was that was filmed for our rehearsal.
Oh, okay.
Just playing around and stuff.
Which was great. It worked out wonderfully. Which is, and I've been singing that song all day today. I walk my dog, and I can't help but sing get down. I think my neighbors are pretty much tired of that song by now.
But interesting with Ooh Baby, I remember it made the soul chart, which was quite a big deal back in the early 70s.
Yeah.
You know, but I've never sang it on stage, David, because I have a thing with too many ooh babies. Ooh baby, ooh baby, ooh baby, my love is so sweet. Ooh baby, you're not my feet. Ooh baby. So I figure I've arguably done a few too many ooh babies.
So if I scream it out, out the request at your show, I'm not a lot.
I'm constantly hounded by people, genuine fans of mine, who say I must do it. So, I need to put it in. I need to put it in.
Well, I'll be there. I'll be in LA on March 18th. So if you're going to put it in, I'm putting in the early request for it now.
I might be able to do it. I'll have to learn it. There's a few chord changes in there that I'm not quite sure about.
Well, there's the other question. Besides the hits, when you're going to go on tour here and do some different things, you've probably got to really revisit your catalog and try to remember how these things go. Some of the tracks that you haven't played live in a long time.
I've had a lot of trouble with that on the new album we've done, because I'm not playing the songs outside of recording them. I have cassettes. I have cassette copies of the chords.
That's what Elliot said. You record on cassette still.
I still record that, yeah, but I also have cassette copies of the middle eights of the new songs, because otherwise I'll have a bloody hard job in remembering where they went. I had to say to my piano player in the band, I said, "Can you tell me what I played in this particular part of my song?" And he's got no trouble because he can read music and he can tell me what the but that's quite fun.
I think that would be an interesting show right there. We'll take all of your 20 studio albums. We'll sit you on stage. And we'll yell out a track name and say, "Play it."
And I know that there are artists out there who do that.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
Say to the audience, "Let me know what you want to hear." Jesus, I'd be in real trouble. I would be in real trouble.
Well, how do you choose some of the deep cuts from your vast catalog? What makes you say, "Yeah, we should do that," as opposed to another one?
Well, it's a balance. It's a balance, David. There's a good variety of material there, and it's based on, as I say, the best-known songs, of course, and the album tracks that people write to me about. There's a song I do called, at one stage, "Miss My Love Today." People really like that song, so that's in the act, and also it's played on electric piano as opposed to the acoustic piano, and so things like that are brought in. And then an element of new material, which not a lot, just enough, but it's over 2 hours. Every song is mine, so it's nice to have that mix.
Sure.
There's an element of humor. We do I Don't Love You, But I Think I Like You, which really rocks. But it's only me and Bill, just the two of us. But we can rock it up.
I'm so looking forward to it. Well, you're talking about your new album is coming out in April. I think that's what Elliot said. BMG said it's going to drop in April, and it's called Driven.
Yeah, it was going to be called Body and Mind, but that was put on the back burner. Then it was going to be called Moderation in Excess, and that was a very but Driven is kind of, in a sense, I am driven. Musically, I'm driven, always wanting the love of the craft that I have. Mm-hmm. The joy of the songwriting, the joy of meeting people when we perform in concerts and stuff. That's still in me. I'm 75 years of age and stuff. Should I be retiring? Should I be out there in the garden doing something? I love it. I mean, I listen to the radio. We talked earlier about the power of radio and the influence. I hear new stuff. I can hear Kanye West or Jay-Z. Maybe there's not much of a song that I'll get out of it, but the production value will teach me something. Right. So there's always something to learn from new acts. It's Taylor Swift. I love John Mayer, Dua Lipa. I love Alison Krauss and stuff. We recorded an album in Nashville. We met her because her husband was the guitar player on the record we did there. And so, I buy everything because it's important. You have to like what's going on, because there's a danger if you don't, you'll lose it.
Right.
So do you think we'll hear some? Not do you think? Will we hear some new styles from you on Driven?
Interesting lyrics, David. There's a song called "If Only Love Had Ears." So work that one out.
I couldn't even imagine. I'm looking forward to it. One album that you did, which is still very striking and to me, is Singer Sewing Machine, because there were some at the time some very modern sounds that were. I mean, there's one song in there that I think sounds like Coldplay or Radiohead, which I don't know if that's what you were going for, but as you say, it's just something that came out of you.
Well, that was before their time, so so it's I was proud of it, and I was happy with the title because it got away from the singer-songwriter. So I thought Singer Sewing Machine seemed like a nice.
I love it.
Because everybody's a singer-songwriter today, right? Everybody. If you ask an audience of 1,000 people who are watching you, or how many people here are painters and decorators, and maybe a half dozen hands will go up. How many people here write songs? Everybody put their hand up. So it's
well, if I like to ask this kind of a question with artists who have a quite the catalog. If there's a meteor coming to the earth and we all have about an hour left, what's the song that GIlbert O'Sullivan wants to sit down at the piano, and this is the one song he's going to play with his couple minutes he's got left?
That's great.
No, really, I mean, what does GIlbert O'Sullivan? Yeah, don't look up, but
it's kind of pretentious query in a way, with the world going to end. But for argument's sake, I mean, not of my songs, but anybody's song. Is that
anybody's song? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, no question. "Fool on the Hill," Peggy Lee.
Oh wow!
My all-time favorite.
Wow!
"Folks Who Live on the Hill." It's my favorite, in my top 10 of favorite songs. She's number one. We work with Peggy.
See, that's what, here on Material Issues, that's the kind of questions we like to ask, because nobody asks that kind of a question, and we would not have known a little tidbit. Right. I mean, if you ask David his favorite song of all time, or mine, it's probably things that people would never have thought we would say, and that's an interesting thing to know about GIlbert O'Sullivan. I mean, coming from a master at his craft, what song is important to him is really neat.
But Jerome Kern, who wrote the wonderful melody writer, Jerome Kern.
And if I may also put you on the spot here, of all the versions of your songs that other people have done, which one is your favorite?
Well, the most recent one mentioned earlier was Diana Krall.
Oh, Diana Krall, yeah.
Diana Krall, who did it with Michael Bublé. Lovely version. The Michael Bublé, the Neil Diamond that I mentioned earlier, really nice. And the fact that he wrote me a little letter, hope that I liked it and stuff. So I go right back to people like Nina Simone, who I love. Nina Simone. She's a big influence for me, her piano playing and stuff. So there are lots of artists. Sarah Vaughan version is fantastic. The line, "I remember I cried when my father died." And she says, "I remember I cried when my daddy died," and stuff. Mm-hmm. Little things like that sort of bring a smile on my face. But I have a version of it which is just mind-bending, and it's by a Japanese band.
Oh,
they're a heavy metal band.
Oh my!
They do it at 250 miles an hour. It's mind-boggling.
What's the name of the band? I need to hear this.
It's a Yukitaka. I haven't got it.
We'll have to Google this.
You'll have to send an email to us, and we'll forward you the name of the band. I mean, maybe even send you a copy somehow. But it is just mind-boggling.
That I got to hear. Well, I do know that besides recording, you are in the piano moving business. Elliot sent us that great photo, which is awesome.
That's made of polystyrene. So
I had to bring that up. He had sent a bunch of pics and things that we could use. I know we showed this one, which is your Alone Again Naturally Just GIlbert tour coming up here, which is going to be great at all the city winery locations. I can't wait for March 7th. It's sneaking up on us quickly. So
I'm looking forward to it too. So
indeed. But
Southpaw was the first album that you produced by yourself. Did you find that to be daunting, or was that something you were really looking forward to and you were really ready for it?
Well, obviously, I was beginning to do a few of the B-sides. Gordon was spending more time in America with Tom, so there was this gap, this period of time. And I was able to do it. Gordon had his studio, and I just liked the idea of being able to make an album with him not being there all the time. It was useful for me to get in control and stuff and production. I wasn't necessarily wanting to be a producer big time, but I enjoyed the process of doing that, and very happy with it. But I like working with producers. I've always said, interestingly enough, the current album, the GIlbert O'Sullivan album, was produced by Ethan Johns. And what Ethan brings to the album is different to what the current producer has brought. Andy Wright, who produced the new album, produced Simple Minds, Simply Red. Ethan's produced people like Laura Marling, people in the past. But their approach to production is very different. And when you have the same writer of every song, it's good to have that different sense of production value coming in to make the record. There's a danger if you use the same producer each time, you'll get a sameness. So I think it's quite important.
Yeah.
What the producer will bring will add to what the person singing and writing the songs has done. So I think that's quite an important point. Because people have said, why don't you, if it was so good with Ethan, why don't you work with him again? And he would be happy to. But I said, no, it's just, let's see what somebody else can bring to the table.
Right.
And it works. So touch wood. You guys like what I've done this time. So.
And we're looking forward to it. It won't be available while you're touring. It's not going to be released till April.
It comes out in July.
Comes out in July.
Okay. But we'll have to sing. We'll have a single out in April.
Okay.
We'll have a single out in June, I think. So to preempt.
All right.
Release.
So this is kind of a here I am. I'm back in the U.S. Here, something's coming up, and then we'll release the thing, and then we'll come back again for another tour post release. God bless.
That should be the plan.
Did COVID, did the pandemic allow for you more time, more energy to write?
The beauty of, I'm a solitary person anyway. I need the solitude to write, particularly with the lyrics and stuff. I need that time on my own. So lockdown, where we were isolated, that's what I'm at anyway when I write lyrics, David. You know, because I'm with, when Ethan Johns was on board for the current album, I didn't write the lyrics when he heard the tunes, but I spent the next 3 months doing it. With this album, I wrote all the lyrics before meeting the producer because I had the gap with lockdown and isolation to be able to do it. So I need that solitude to write lyrics and stuff. Lyrics are time consuming, a lot longer than the melodies, which happen by practice and sitting there coming up with something. So
you probably have quite the catalog of books full of lyrics, I would think by now.
Well, not really, Mark. I mean, the lyrics, as I say, the lyrics to this new song, the new album, were written leading up to it. So the 3 months before, 4 months before, during lockdown, I wrote all the lyrics for the songs. But there was a few that I played extra ones for him, which are completed. And it's arguable that, going back to what I mentioned to you earlier about writing about things that are current. For example, a couple of the songs on this new album mention climate change.
Oh, wow.
It's relevant to us all.
Sure.
And I like to involve things like that because in a subtle way, I'm not trying to preach to anybody. In a subtle way, you can get a point across about what's going on in the world. And climate change is affecting everybody. So there's no harm in having an element of that in your lyrics.
Yeah, some people are denying it, of course, but
well,
what are you going to do?
They're the people that say the earth is flat. So
that's true.
Just saw the graphic where it showed all the planets in our universe, and all of a sudden it showed the Earth flat. And people just scratching your head like, huh? Ours exists that way. But well, we certainly wish you the absolute best on the upcoming tour. I mean, David and I are both going to see you, so
you must come and say hello to you. Must come back and say hello.
We would be glad to. We would love to.
Absolute honor. Absolute honor. You know,
what's something that we haven't covered that you would like your fans to know about this tour or anything else?
Just how I'm genuinely looking forward to appearing in front of them and hoping they like what we do and stuff. And the example we've had with the shows, the 2 shows we did in 2018, the reaction was fantastic. So if it continues along that way, it'll be a delightful experience. You know, there's great joy in performing in front of people who like what you're doing. It's very special, and it couldn't be better than to be doing it for you.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
wonderful.
We're honored. We so much look forward to it, cool. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Material Issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. What can I say? been
That
enjoyable.
really is. David and I have both grown up being music lovers, and we've had a wonderful opportunity to be able to talk to a lot of artists that we idolize. Might be too big of a word, but you grow up with it, and they mean a lot to you. And Gilbert, your music has certainly in that category.
And you're the first artist
well,
that I think we've had on where your songs are really part of the soundtrack of our lives.
Okay.
As Mark alluded to earlier, when I listen to, not just your hits, but some of your albums, it takes me back to that time and all the emotions and certain memories. And that's really, really precious.
Yeah, well, thank you
for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay.
Gilbert, be safe, be happy, be healthy. Love to Tara and the family. We appreciate everybody's help in putting this together. And we will see you real soon in the United States. So anybody else who hasn't figured it out yet, go on to gilbertosullivan.co.uk. You'll find the tour dates, get tickets, see Gilbert in the United States.
Absolutely.
And you have a great night, Gilbert. Thank you so much.
Good to talk to you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Keep safe. Bye-bye.
Well, David. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I just sit here and I go, wow.
I know. It's like, when I interviewed Brian Wilson, it was a little bit different because I was sitting literally, 3 feet from him in his house.
Right.
I was having an out-of-body experience when that happened.
Right.
That kind of happened here too, even though, we're detached because of for a lot of reasons. But thankfully, we had the technology. But still, this was pretty surreal.
That's the word I look for. It's surreal in many ways. And you and I have both have had the experience of either being in the presence of an artist that has meant a lot to us in our youth, in our teens and whatnot. And we've done it here online with a lot of great artists. It's just surreal to be able to connect the dots in such a personal way. And I'm grateful to be able to do that. I'm grateful to be able to do it with you, my friend, and to have someone like Gilbert O'Sullivan talking about some iconic songs from my childhood and onward.
It's going to be hard to top this. Now we have to find other people with #1 records. I don't know how we're going to have to look down the charts. Let's see. Who can we get who had a #1 hit? Oh, maybe we can get them. We're going to have to do that now. I mean, everything else is going to be
Alone Again Naturally was #1 for off and on for like 6 weeks, I think it was, in the US. So we just have to find somebody who was 7 weeks.
That's true.
It's the only way to top it,
Would it count if somebody had #1s in other countries? Like,
well,
I know, really. It's not quite the same, is it?
It's not, but that would help. Who do you think is making this comment?
Nick Jonas. That's okay. No disrespect to the Jonas Brothers, but no, thank you.
Well, David, that was one for the books. Episode number 39 of Material Issues with Gilbert O'Sullivan. And speaking of material issues, what do we got coming up? We've got a full schedule coming up
until the end of March.
Wow.
Just like Gilbert, actually.
Yeah.
But we're starting even earlier because next week is a guy who was part of a band who didn't quite have a #1, but they did have a top 10 and several top 20s. He joined them for their final album, which a lot of people think is their best. You ask John Borak, who's a huge authority on power pop, of course. Ask him what he thinks of Starting Over, and that's his favorite. And so we're honored to have Mr. Scott McCarl of Raspberries on next week here on Material Issues, February 23rd. Then on March 2nd, speaking of power pop, we have the man who is so much responsible for the power pop renaissance that took place in the mid-90s, because he had put out a magazine called Yellow Pills, which was completely devoted to that genre. He opened the eyes of a lot of people who love power pop, who wondered, are there any others out there like me? because in the early 90s, of course, power pop was really not happening very much on the radio or elsewhere. And he also opened the eyes of a lot of musicians who said, you know what? There really is there's an audience for this. And we love this kind of music. So, now we've got people to record for and to play for. So let's start doing some power pop. So, indirectly for sure, Yellow Pills fostered that renaissance. And the man who published it and edited it and all that good stuff, Mr. Jordan Oakes, will be on Material Issues on March 2nd. And not only, does he deserve all those accolades, he's a hilarious guy. So this is amazing.
And that's why I'm lamenting a little bit that I may not be here for that show.
Even if it's in the middle of a match you're broadcasting.
I may have a doubleheader state playoff basketball game I got to broadcast, but I can log in from that area just to say hi for a little bit. But yeah, it's just the way timing works out with a lot of responsibilities. But Jordan will be great guest.
Good thing I'm irresponsible and don't have anything else I have to do. I hopefully you'll be there at least for a bit, but I know I will.
I will try. March
9th. Again, we're talking about power pop heroes. There aren't too many who are as elevated in the pantheon as this man, guitarist for one of the greatest power pop bands ever, the Smithereens. Mr. Jim Babjack will be our guest on March 9th. Possibly Dennis Dyken as well, a drummer for the Smithereens, but we don't know yet. Right now it's Jim, and we're really looking forward to that. On March 16th, we're going to go back to the jolly old UK of the 60s, because this gentleman wrote some really, really cool songs for a lot of bands like the Hollies and Manfred Mann. He wrote Listen to Me. He wrote Ha Ha Said the Clown, a few others. He put out an album, kind of like, as we mentioned, Graham Gouldman, doing the Graham Gouldman thing, where he recorded his own versions of stuff he wrote for other people. This gentleman did the same thing at that time, and he's great. We had him at IPO Liverpool a few years ago. It was really it was certainly one of my proudest moments, and we're very proud to have Mr. Tony Hazard on March 16th. He's a really nice guy, and awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. Then on March 23, we're going to inject some pulchritudinous guests.
Good word.
I said inject. I didn't mean it that way, folks. But not only are they beautiful, but they really rock. They're great performers, awesome songwriters. We've had this band at IPO many times, and we would love to have them as many times as we can, anywhere they want to play. Sly Boots, the band from New York, not all girl, but the three front people are women, and they rock, as I said, and we're really looking forward to having them on March 23rd. Yeah. And then on March 30th, drummer extraordinaire, member of one of the most iconic bands of all time, still going strong, still, doing session work on many different records, including a tribute that came out to an album that he had originally been on. So things kind of came full circle with Ram On, a tribute to my favorite Paul McCartney album, Ram. And this drummer remained with the band for a few other albums afterwards. And we're very honored to have Denny Sywell of Wings, Paul McCartney fame. And we have to thank the producer of Ram On, Fernando Perdomo, for who had been a guest on Material Issues. He set this up for us. So we're very thankful for that. We're thankful to have Denny on. So that's through March.
That's really cool.
On April, I'm hoping that sometime in April we have somebody who is a bucket list person for me. I've reached out to somebody who may know him. I don't want to say any more than that, but if we get them, this will be very, very cool. And of course, we'll continue to have as many cool guests as are willing to be on our show. And
which is one thing I like about Material Issues is that we're trying to get some interesting people that not everybody talks to all the time, and
right,
and that's really cool.
From today and the past.
Yep.
We, the more the merrier, and we're always trying, and I think we've done pretty well so far.
And we've got 39 episodes under our belts. That makes me go, whoa.
I know, really.
How did that happen?
Do that, except I have no hair, so
this isn't real. This isn't real.
This bald head is very real.
But yeah, tonight was an absolute pleasure, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. And of course, if you did, just tell your friends to join the Facebook group, Material Issues. Just join the group. That'll let you know who's coming up the following week. Or if you can't do that, if you can only have access to YouTube, it's materialissues.com over in YouTube. And on both places, the archive of all 39 shows is there. You can watch them.
And you should.
And you should. Thank you. Someone just popped up. Great show. Thank you very much. We appreciate the comments. And as long as people are enjoying it and we're enjoying it, we'll keep bringing you episode after episode of Material Issues.
Yes, thank you all very, very much for being a part of what we're doing. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again. So,
all right.
Mark, have a great rest of your night and week, and we'll see you next time.
All right, everybody. Cheers. Good night, all.
Good night.